So welcome back to our breakout session. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we do what we do now. And I'm a very interactive presenter, so since we're not in person, I'd love for you all to reach out with questions during our question and answer time, because I love to tell our story, and I love to answer questions and help other people. So Stemple Creek Ranch is a relatively new brand. I hit on it this morning a little bit, but we didn't have that logo, or we didn't have the name 13 years ago, 12 years ago. We started all this right around the time our first child was born. So what we do and why is we have a real important land ethic in our operation. Everything we do revolves around making the land healthier for the generations to come. We have a 100-year vision and a 200-year vision. And basically what happened in our area is we're now farming on subsoil because of the farming that took place in the 1850s and 60s. A lot of our topsoil washed into the ocean. So we're now farming on subsoil, but we want to build it back up. And my goal is to be able to build soil every single year. A couple other things that are really important to us on what we do and why is we work with Marin Agricultural Land Trust, and all the land we manage in Marin County is protected by Marin Agricultural Land Trust. And what that means is we've sold the development rights, or the land that I lease, the owners have sold the development rights, and it's going to be in farming forever. So it's a beautiful open coastal prairie landscapes, and it's going to be like that forever because that's how it's deeded now. We still own the property, we just sold the development rights. I'm also real active in the Marin Carbon Project. Some of you may have heard about it. It's a 10-year study to show that we're sequestering more carbon than we're emitting, and it's actually been really awesome. I can tell you more about the data that we've gotten so far, but I'm one of the 3 demonstration sites. And right now we're sequestering about an additional 2 metric tons of carbon per acre per year with our practices that I'm going to tell you about here in a little bit. We want to sell a product that's healthy for the consumer and that's healthy for the environment. And we talk about doing the dance with Mother Nature. And basically we had to reinvent the business with a direct-to-consumer focus. If we were going to keep doing things the same way that we'd always done, we probably wouldn't be here right now. So I can talk more about that too. 4 reasons I really like to tell the story is because our beef tastes better, it's better for the land, it's better for the animals, and it's better for the people consuming it. So just really simple 4 main points that I use quite a bit. So why carbon farming? Some of our goals with carbon farming is to build more soil, which I mentioned before. We want to build more soil for our kids and our grandkids to have more fertility and the next generation. We're just caretakers of this land. Basically, I got another 20, 30 years of being a caretaker for this land, and then it's the next generation that's going to do this. So I want to be able to help them and basically help the world and the planet. We want to market super high quality, healthy food. We want green grass longer. So we live in a Mediterranean environment where we get rain half the year and we're dry as a drought can be the other half of the year. And so we want to have green feed year round. And in order to do that, we have to have a lot more carbon in the soil, because the carbon's a sponge and it holds water, okay? It's like the sponge on your kitchen sink. And then the last one is we have to be profitable. There's all these buzzwords about sustainability and regenerative, and none of that stuff really matters if you're not profitable enough to stay there and to feed your family and to save and to hire employees that you need to be able to pay a fair living wage and give them the benefits that they need. So profitability is a real important part of why we're carbon farming. So I want to talk a little bit about the transition to carbon farming and how that happened and what's happening on the day-to-day basis there at our place. But whenever we make decisions, we really make decisions based on the soil first. When I first started really aggressively ranching about 13 years ago, as my having a lot of skin in the game and trying to make this a real business. When I first started, I considered myself a grass farmer. And what we would do is we'd apply nitrogen to the surface of the soil. We'd get a lot of grass that would grow. It'd be bright and green. And I thought that was a really good thing. But what I never really realized is it's really what's happening in the top 6 inches of soil and below that is affecting the quality of the grass and the quality of the soil. And if we're not taking care of the soil, we're just mining it. So we've really paid a lot of attention now to what's going on in the soil, and we're constantly learning and adapting and changing and trying to do the right thing for the soil. So it's just a dance, as I say, with Mother Nature, which I'll talk about here in a little bit as we get into the grazing practices. Elements of my carbon farm plan are we use compost. We use compost tea, seawater, or seawater derivatives. We're trying to introduce forbs into our pastures because we want deep tap roots. One of the keys to our soil health is to get air into the soil. That's the biggest limiting factor we have in our soil right now, is not water, it's air to allow the microbes, bacteria, fungi to live. They need to be able to breathe. Right now, our soil and a lot of our pastures feels, if I could use the analogy of a human, it'd be like you have a 300-pound weight on your chest. It's compacted so bad in a lot of, actually, the California landscape that only annual grasses will grow in the top couple inches. But we need to get roots down deep. So that's been my big focus for the last 10 years, is trying to get air into the soil. We use pulse grazing, we use cover crops, we use worm tea, we use other biologicals. And the way that we measure that right now is with a refractometer, basically measuring the success, measuring the sugars that are increasing the Brix of the pastures as we apply different inputs. Every single year and every single day is a dance with Mother Nature. I oftentimes use that as an analogy, is once in a while we step on each other's toes and we cause a problem. But you go back to your dating days, if you got out on the dance floor and you kept stepping on your date's toes over and over and over, you would probably not go home with them and have a different dance partner. So what you got to do with Mother Nature is not step on each other's toes, do the waltz, do the swing, do whatever you want, but don't be stepping on each other's toes. And that's the dance that we do every single day here at Stemple Creek Ranch. We've planted all of our riparian areas, and it's a huge carbon sink. But the other thing about it that's exciting is it allows for lots and lots of biodiversity to be there on the ranch with us. And the more I get into this and the more I look at soil health, biodiversity is key. So we want lots of different species growing together, and at the same time we want lots of different critters, bugs, insects, birds, other species to be here living with us, reptiles and mammals. We want all these different types of things, and we want to graze different types of animals to be able to help with the biodiversity. I'm going to show you some pictures of some of that stuff. It's really, some of the work we're doing is really awesome, I think. So we've planted the riparian areas and fenced off all of them, and by default, it's forced us to do some better grazing. I'm really, really excited about the possibilities, and I'm really excited to do a lot more and to fix a lot more land. And I would say the biggest challenges and the things you have to look at home on your home properties are make sure that the practices you're doing have a measurable ROI and have the capital to be able to do them and implement them. And I've used a lot of matching funds type, government type programs like NRCS programs to help us speed up some of these programs or some of these practices, because it basically offsets some of the costs. So there's a lot of money out there for ranching and for farming to do the right thing. And there's no other industry that I know of that you can actually have somebody support you with grants. So get out there and get after some of those. So The other thing that I really realized over the years is we're photosynthesis farmers, so we used to be grass farmers, now we're really soil farmers. But to build soil, we have to have photosynthesis. So real key parts of that is no bare soil ever. We don't ever want to have bare soil. And we always want to have a living root in the ground. And on coastal prairie, California, Mediterranean climate, what happens a lot is it's all annual grasses. So we get rain in the fall, a green up, a prolific emerald springtime with lots of green forage, and then it quits raining and the hills turn brown, and some people say it's golden state because of the hills are golden, but that's not the real reason why it's the golden state. But anyway, there's fields and fields of brown grass. What we want is to have perennial grasses, fields and fields of perennial grasses and forbs and legumes, so that we can ultimately feed the soil, create photosynthesis, build soil, at the same time harvest that protein, or harvest that forage with cattle and turn it into super high quality protein that we can sell direct to consumers. So one of the ways that we do that is this photo here is chicory. Chicory is a deep tap rooted perennial forb. And you can see in this photo, I mean, the roots are only down, 6-8 inches. And this is a couple years ago. But that is a photo from July, right next to the hand with the worm in it. There's worms living in that root. The photo to the right of it is in July, and we have a field full of green forbs in July. It's like, well, or in August, in September. How can you do that in a Mediterranean climate when everything else is dry? You can do that by increasing carbon, increasing your root depth so it has access to the water that's below the hard pan in the soil. So we're really excited about this. Some of the other elements of the carbon farm plan is we make a lot of compost on site, and we actually spread that on site. We get as much free carbon as we can, basically chasing down tree trimmer trucks or making arrangements for anybody who wants to drop off their wood chips or old logs, and we will chip them and get piles and piles of wood chips and then mix them with chicken manure, horse manure, cow manure, whatever we can. Also, grape pumice is a really good source of carbon that we mix with the manure to make a high quality compost that we ultimately spread on our pastures. In the Marin Carbon study, we actually had a 35-acre plot that we applied a 1/4 inch of compost, a 1/2 inch of compost, and no compost. And then we came back and measured the results 7 years later, and we saw how the different treatments affected the amount of carbon that was in the soil. And what we saw on my ranch was that all of the sites went up in carbon. And that's where I threw out the number a while ago that we have between 2 and 3 metric tons of carbon per acre per year on those treatment sites. The interesting thing for us is we saw the control area go up almost equal to the treatment areas. On other ranches, we haven't seen the same results. But I think a lot of that has to do with our grazing and the foliar products that we apply, because we have applied that to the whole pasture. But the truth is, if you pay attention to it, you can see really, really, really awesome results. So this is one of our riparian areas. I was mentioning that we like to fence off the riparian areas and eliminate grazing seasonally. We can still graze riparian areas. We just don't want to graze them when it's super wet and causing erosion, and we want lots of biodiversity there. So this is looking out the window of my kitchen window when I was a kid. This is in the 1980s and early 90s, and that Stemple Creek comes right through the property there. And the Stemple Creek, that's where he came up with the name Stemple Creek Ranch, because this whole riparian area is a super important part of our business and feature of the landscape of the ranch. And it was denuded, as you can see in these photos. The cattle would actually drink out of the creek. They would eat anything green. All summer they would have access to the creek. Anything green in the off season or the time of the year that there wasn't growing feed up in the hills, they would eat all the way to the ground. They would defecate in the water when they were drinking there. There wasn't lots of biodiversity, and water quality was really down. So about 1991, my dad and my sister decided that they wanted to fence off the creek, have a bunch of school kids come out to the ranch and plant willow trees. There was this really cool organization called STRAW, Students and Teachers Restoring a Watershed. And there's a fairy shrimp in this creek that's in 11 creeks in the world. So they wanted to protect the fairy shrimp. Now, there's lots of people in agriculture who be like, oh my God, there's a fairy shrimp in the creek. Let's, be careful because it's endangered species and they're not going to let us graze. That was pretty much the exact opposite of what my family did, and I can't take credit for it. My dad did that. I'm really on his shoulders now, taking it to the next level. But the creek was heavily degraded, and what happened was we fenced it all off. We actually added water troughs up in the uplands, and we would seasonally pulse graze that creek, and we planted lots and lots of trees. And these are the results that we got. And these results are what give me hope. So, this is in the late 80s. This is in the mid 90s. The whole creek is now vegetated, and we still graze all the way around it and even in the creek, but a canopy is starting to form over the top of the creek. What that does is it cools the water in the creek, allows it not to get deoxygenated and warm in the summertime and turn green with algae. And also, by default, it's a huge carbon sink because we're growing all that biomass in the creek, in those trees. And we're also building lots and lots of habitat. So we have 50 varieties of migratory birds that nest here now that didn't have the habitat. They didn't have the habitat. Now they have the habitat. And this is what it looks like today. So it's absolutely stunning. And what it's done for me as a young agriculturalist is it's given me hope that, the damage that we caused as agriculturalists or farmers or ranchers that we didn't intend to cause. I mean, nobody wants to harm their land or harm the species that live on their land, but unintended consequences happen a lot. So we're trying to change those, and my short lifetime, I've seen the results. And so like in the 1990s, it looked very denuded. The water would turn green, the fish would die. 2010, it looked pretty darn good. The water quit turning green. There was new birds coming. 2018, it looks like this. And in my short lifetime, we've been able to make a huge, huge difference to the ecological health, the habitat, and the biodiversity. I've actually updated this. We have about 50 types of migratory birds that nest here now that we've seen over the years, and we're really excited by the results. And this has just happened in a short amount of time. So I want to keep doing this. I start dreaming about what is this going to look like 100 years from now, and what types of species and plants can we plant so that this looks even more healthy and more diverse 100 years from now. So a lot of times people ask, is your carbon farm plan working? Well, one way to figure that out is to look over the fence. So in this photo, the left side of the fence is my neighbor's property. The right side of the fence is mine. We have grass that's 2 foot tall in the spring. The neighbor's side looks like a golf course and lots of bare soil. They know this. We talk about it. The creek is heavily denuded. It looks like the pictures from 1990, my dad's property there. But really all of this is driving me to, the reason why I'm doing this is economic benefit. We grow so much more feed. We sell so many more pounds of beef off of our property than the neighbor can. And at the same time, we're sequestering more carbon. We're building more habitat. We have lots more biodiversity. So yes, it's absolutely working, both economically, ecologically, socially, all of these reasons. And yeah, so we're excited about it. We're going to keep doing more and more and more. But it's absolutely stunning the amount of feed that we grow compared to the properties next door. So grazing practices, I spend lots and lots of time in my daily routines trying to learn better about grazing. Intuitively, 20 years ago, I started grazing in not really higher densities, but for longer durations and strip grazing. And what I really realized by strip grazing is I was unintendedly overgrazing. What we do now is we call it pulse grazing. We have larger groups of cattle like this, and we put them into a pasture for a short amount of time, and we move them daily. So I'll show you a little video right now of this last winter. We have these new deals called a tumble wheel, and Gallagher Fencing sells them, and we actually move the tumble wheels, and we can move the cattle 5, 10, 15 times a day if we want to, 10 feet at a time. We have large amounts of cattle. We can move it 20, 30 feet, 10 feet. But what it does is it makes the cattle motivated. When they see that fence move, they get up, and it's like pushing up the feed at a dairy. Even if they're full, they get up, they walk up to the fence, and they eat a few more bites of grass, and then they lay down. But it also does a lot for the soil, because it brings all of that herding effect into the soil and the pasture in front of you. The cattle eat, they stomp on what's below them, and they poop on what's behind them, and then we'll come back in a rotation when that grass is ready to graze again.
Yep.
This is awesome. This is regenerative agriculture. This is awesome. This is regenerative agriculture. And without cows, you can't have this. So we have large herds, as many as 500 animals, or 1 million pounds, 750,000 to 1 million pounds in on 1 acre at one time. And we're seeing lots of results with biodiversity changes. We have some pastures that are up now to 80% perennial plants. And that's really, really exciting for me. I want to change the diversity even more so that we have perennial plants that grow in the summertime, that don't go dormant in the summertime. But we're working on that, and we're adapting and changing, and every day we're learning more. So this is what our cattle look like. In the springtime, we try and make super fatty grass-fed meat, not just lean red meat. I haven't really talked about this, but I will in a few minutes about what we do as direct marketing. But basically, when cattle leave our operation, we want them to look like they're coming out of a feedlot, but actually grow up out in the open and eating high quality forages like you see here. So we have large groups, like we say here, rotating them through the pastures. I mentioned biodiversity is a huge, huge key to our operation. We embrace biodiversity, and we want lots of different bugs and soils in the soil, different fungi, all different types of things. But you see I have here a handful of grass, and I have forbs, I have legumes, I have annual grasses, I have perennial grasses. I have some grasses that we don't really like, but they happen to grow, and that's keeping the soil from being bare, and I can't really complain about it. So we want every handful of grass to be like a mouth bite of grass for the cow, and have lots of diversity there. Here's just an example of looking down at the diversity in our pastures. On the left side is clover and ryegrass, and that's just from morning dew from the fog on coastal California. We're capturing all of that. The rays of sunlight is the only thing free that we get, and it's creating photosynthesis that's actually feeding and growing the plant, but also the soil. And then to the right of that slide, you can see a cover crop that I planted a few years back, and there's crimson clover and bell beans and vetch and a few other things, but there's lots of different plants growing right next to each other, and we just seeded that right into our pastures and then grazed it in the spring. So that's one of the tools that we're using as well. Well, we have biodiversity like, in the riparian corridors like this, where we have poppies and flowers and habitat for honeybees, which I'll get to here in a minute. And then by grazing multiple species, we're also helping build the soil. So we have cattle as our main enterprise, but we also have sheep, and we have a lot of sheep that graze through our pastures, and they do a really fine job of helping with biodiversity as well. The sheep graze the shorter feed, the cattle graze the taller feed, so if we can run them together, we get a really good even graze on the sward, and it works out well. The other thing is I'm a big duck hunter, and I like to create habitat for the ducks as well. So we fenced off all of our ponds, and we actually add these duck tubes to the ponds. So we have these duck tubes like that where the mallard hen jumps up into the tube. They lay their nest in the tube, and that allows them to not be eaten or killed by a predator. There's an actual hen in the duck tube, but the coyotes and foxes and skunks and all the other stuff that live on the ranch don't swim out there and try and kill the ground nesting ducks like mallard hens on the nest, because it's out in the water. They can't get to them. And then when that duck has its babies, or when the babies hatch, they just drop right into the water, and they have a better chance. We're having about 80 to 90% of these duck tubes used. So it's just our way of helping raise more ducks and helping with biodiversity. We also partner with Towser apiaries, and they bring out honeybees every year, and they keep the honeybees on our ranch for the majority of the year. Then they take them to the valley and pollinate almonds and whatever else needs to be pollinated in the valley, and then they bring them back to the ranch. They love our area, not because it's full of a lot of flowering plants and make tons of honey, but because it's full of pollen. We have lots and lots of pollen in our area, and it's horrible for allergies for people, but it's really great for the queens and the honeybees because they can split the hive. So we have this great relationship with Towser apiaries, and we actually market honey from these bees as Stemple Creek Ranch honey. So we'll talk about that now. Direct marketing is a huge part of our business. As I mentioned, when we moved back to the ranch 15 years ago, we didn't really know what we were going to do, but we knew we wanted to do something really awesome. And for 3 years, we did conventional. The 4th year, we got everything certified organic. We started saying, let's sell everything direct to consumers. So one of the really most important parts of that for me was I wanted to sell a high quality product. 15 years ago, I thought grass-fed beef was bunk. It was just, lean red meat. And what I realized is if we can make cattle look like this, basically short, fat, tabletop cattle that look like they're coming out of a feedlot but do it on grass, then we get a marbled, beautiful, delicious, flavorful product. So that's really, really important to us and to our brand, is to have marbled, fatty grass-fed beef, not just lean red meat. It's super easy to make lean red meat. And some consumers want lean red meat, but they're not the consumers that we target. We want the consumers that want fatty, beautiful grass-fed beef. And when we first started, we started by selling boxes of meat like this that were a whole animal, basically. You'd send a whole animal to a butcher shop, and they'd split it up, and we could sell a quarter beef, half beef, whole beef. And what happened is we sold like 10 of those the first year. Like we generated like $30,000 in revenue, and we were like, oh, this is really cool. So the next year we put up a website. That was now 12 years ago, a 5-page website. And within a few days of putting the website up, we started getting orders from people that we'd never met before in places like Lodi and LA. And we're like, yeah, these people are driving from LA to Tamales to pick up a box of meat that looks like this. Maybe we should keep going and try and take this to the next level. So we started going into more consumer packaged goods similar to this, where we have ribeyes and New Yorks and fillets and everything that we can sell direct to the consumer. Rack of lamb, awesome products that consumers really, really like, that now they can go to our website and buy directly off of our website. And during COVID times, which we're in right now, in deep, it fast forwarded our whole direct-to-consumer business, and we went from just doing a little bit of business online to growing that 10 times in a few months. So it basically fast forwarded our business about 10 years. But now we have people all over the United States that buy our products, and it's delivered to them the next day. We ship boxes on Mondays and Tuesdays all over the country. And then obviously the famous ribeye, which people love. And we've been super blessed by having this high quality beef and being in the Bay Area that some of the best chefs on the planet use our products. So Michael Tusk with Quince, 3 Michelin star restaurant, uses our product weekly. I mean, Alice Waters with Chez Panisse uses our product. Stuart Brioza with State Bird and The Progress uses our product. Zuni Cafe uses our product. So like a lot of really high-end restaurants use our product. It's really helped us build our brand, Stemple Creek. And then here's the honey that we sell. We actually have our one with our label now, but Sola Bee is Towser Apiary's brand. This is a photo from the ranch where we have multiple species of animals grazing. We got the sheep and the cattle, and we had some dairy cattle in this photo. And this is Avery when she was a little girl with some baby lambs, just teaching her about life on the ranch, and going back to the deal about having diverse livestock. We have sheep and cattle and pigs on the ranch right now, and we graze them all the way around and then sell that direct to consumers. One of the ways that we reach out to consumers directly is farmers markets and internet sales. We have a very active Facebook and Instagram audience, and we have 10,000 plus followers, I think, on both. And it's people want authenticity, and they want to know where their products are raised. So by going to farmers markets, it's not a huge profit center for us, but it is a great way that we connect with consumers and we meet people, and they really love that. And really one of the things that agriculture needs right now, in my opinion, is authenticity and transparency. And so we invite people to the ranch all the time. We see them every week at the farmers markets. We supply them with local grass-fed beef and lamb. And we try and just be honest and transparent about everything we do. One of the best ways to do that for us is by inviting people to the ranch. So we have tours and events where we have people, basically open door policy, come to the ranch, and we show them everything that we're doing. And that is, it's really, really important for us from a marketing standpoint, because if they come to the ranch, they see our operation, they see our cattle, they see our sheep, they see our pigs, they meet us in person, and then they taste our product, most of the time they keep coming back. And we also have other biodiverse forms of revenue streams for the ranch, because we can charge for tours now. People want to get out of the city and come to the ranch and see what we're doing. The other thing is we have 3 little Airbnbs on the ranch, which I'll get to here in a minute, but they can come stay and spend the night, and it's another revenue source. Or they can come and rent our big barn and have a wedding or a family party or a bunch of friends or a 50th birthday. And all of these types of things, it's helping us pay for the ranch with different things, not relying solely on cattle or sheep or pigs. So we're embracing agritourism, getting people to come to the ranch, meet us, see us, taste our product, and then hopefully when they go home, they're going to crave that and still want it. They'll order a box online, and we'll be able to keep a successful, profitable business going. This is just an example of a tour. We start at the barns and we work up to the top of the hill, and we basically take people around and show them out. Everybody gets some exercise. And then some of the other things we do annually is there's a group called Outstanding in the Field. They come out to the ranch. We set up a big long table out in the field with 200 people at one table, and we eat a gorgeous Michelin star type meal out in the field. That's all products that are procured right here in our local area. So it's this is a worldwide organization, Outstanding in the Field, and it's a great way to get exposure. We've been fortunate enough to get some nice honors and awards in the last few years, and I was named the Outstanding Rancher in Sonoma County. This was back in 2013, but recently we were a finalist for the Leopold Conservation Award. Real big honor for us because it shows that other people are seeing the great work that I think we're doing too. This is just more tours to show people around and what we're doing there on the ranch. I mentioned we feed them at these tours. The people that come, they meet us, they see our animals, and then they eat our products, and lots of smiles when they leave. And this is one of the happiest places for me, is right behind the barbecue. So we also give the kids jobs, and that's to sell products. So we have a little farmer's market when people come out for the tours. We have lots of farm to table dinners actually at the barn, and these are just examples. So I mentioned earlier that we bought the neighbor's property, and the neighbor's property was pretty old and run down with lots of deferred maintenance. And there was all these different barns and buildings that were really not being used. One of them was a historic barn that didn't really have any ag value anymore. So we decided to turn it into another revenue stream and got excited about that by making it a educational barn. So we do lots of educational events there, and we do also host weddings and parties and those types of things out in the country. They use our products at these weddings and all the other things and learn about our ranching practices. And it's another revenue stream that allows us to keep farming, but also adds a layer of protection for us as a business. So diversity. If it doesn't rain one year, well, we have a barn that can generate revenue and pay for our mortgage. If COVID happens, our barn is put out of business, but hopefully it rains and our grass-fed beef business goes up. So we have lots of diverse revenue streams that are helping us with this business. This is an example of the wedding venue. People from the city love the country and they want to come out and get married and have beautiful photos like this. This is what the barn looks like when it's all dollied up. It's amazing what brides will do to take care of their one amazing day when they get married. But it can be elegant or rustic or whatever way you want it to be. This is the ranch that we bought. This is the barn. And this is an example of one of our Airbnbs. We call this the Love Shack. It's the old barn on the ranch that basically the sheep shearers used to stay in. It's the bunkhouse, and we just fixed it up and cleaned it up, and now it's an Airbnb. And pre-COVID times, we had people coming all the time to stay in this Love Shack 2-3 days a week. Another revenue stream for us. And then the barn can be considered a party barn. Here's me and Lisa love to dance, so here's us dancing in the party barn and the weddings, and then small events similar to what I mentioned before. So we have lots and lots and lots of cool things happening at Stemple Creek Ranch. I would love to answer any questions that you guys have for me about all the different things that we're doing. But my main message with this is you can do anything you want if you dream about it and you have a plan and you put the plan in place. And if you're not satisfied with your current results, then you have to change. And the major driving force of change is dissatisfaction. So you can be dissatisfied and complain, or you can go out there and try and figure out a new way to do it and hopefully get different results and be super happy. And that's what we're doing, and that's what makes me happy every day. And I'm excited, super excited about our business and everything about it. And this is my happy place, behind the barbecue, showcasing our great meats and meeting new people and telling our story about how it tastes better, it's better for the land, it's better for the animals, and it's better for the people eating our product. So thanks so much for listening to me today. I'm looking forward to answering a bunch of your questions, and have a great day.